So I just want to welcome everybody to the third session of OASIS Center for Conscious Living. This is practices and principles for conscious living. We have classes being taught today by Louis Bourgeois. This is our third session out of 4 during this series. So let's just take a moment to get in our center today. Today is actually the first day in the Northern Hemisphere of the autumn equinox. It happened actually at 8:31 this morning, where there was the perfect balance point. So that was just about an hour and a half ago. So we are now in that portal of this balancing time. And this is when the sun is in the Venus sign of Libra, and Libra is about balance. So equinox, it is that moment when the sun crosses the equator and our time of day and time of night is of equal length. It's the midpoint of the astrological year. So we're balancing and harmonizing with the masculine and the feminine, with the light and the dark, kind of the yin yang symbol that Louis talked about last week. So it's also for us right now, it's a 0-point field. So we're really trying to neutralize these polarities and these dualities of right and wrong and good and bad. So just think about getting in this neutral point of alchemizing and transmuting those energies. The card that I have in my deck for autumn equinox says release. So release is also when we have this time of fall leaves falling. That is to think in your life about anything that doesn't serve you, that you want to let go of, just like the leaves falling from the trees. So just take a breath and ask you to invite that feeling of release into your body. Feel that relaxation moving down your head, down your arms, down your torso, through your legs, into your feet. Take a breath. Feel that grounding with Mother Earth as she enters a new cycle. Just as the leaves are changing color, think of what is changing in your life. What would you like to bring in to this new phase, this new evolution, this new cycle on Earth? And as the leaves fall, what is it that you would like to release from your life? What are you carrying? What stresses are you carrying? What might you be able to simplify, or material items be able to release? And just feel that lightness that comes from releasing and knowing that you can replace it with something that's more in alignment with who you are. This is a great time for manifesting, to bring in those relationships that serve you, the job and career that strikes your passion, to be thinking about the place that you want to live to serve your highest good. So just feel the acceptance for all that is happening in your life and in the world right now. And then begin to feel that appreciation, something that might even feel like a burden. What can you find to appreciate about that? And then bring in that enthusiasm, like, wow, look what I get to go through, to learn from and grow from, and see all of the beauty that comes from every situation in your life that may appear negative. So one final breath, and you can come back to this space. Hi, Robin. We have you here. And all right. So thank you. And we'll turn it on over to Louis.
Perfecto. Right. So great meditation, and bring in the three core elements as described by Eckhart Tolle of a new earth, which are the energetic levels of consciousness described by the words acceptance, appreciation, and enthusiasm. So what I'd like to start with is integrating these concepts, the three levels of power that we talked about: tribal mind, egoic mind, spiritual mind, with these three elements: acceptance, appreciation, and enthusiasm, and see how in our developmental journey, both personally and collectively, there's the possibility to, as Lynn describes, let go of the old form as what we identify with and step into a new possibility, a more expanded reality. And so if you think about your life, most of us around the time we were 16, 17, 18, 19, we went through a particular portal that's very common in our culture. And the portal might look like going off to university or going into the military or getting married or something that takes you away from the tribal clan, the biological family, mom and dad and siblings. And so one of the things I'd like you to think about, and as we go on, for those that are interested in this as a continuing group, to consider this process that I once described as a life map, where you just take a big piece of paper and make a line, and it doesn't need to be linear at all. It could be circular, it could be waves, but basically a line that you feel describes your life from your birth to your transition out of the space-time world. And just, that's sort of the beginning. And once you have this timeline, then you start adding little elements like, oh, at 17, there was a major transition in my life. 5 days out of high school, I went off to the Air Force Academy in Colorado. And, that trauma of the next year was a very powerful catalyst for what I would become. It showed me everything I didn't want to be, but it was a very dramatic example at a relatively early age, 17, 18, of truly the things that I deeply did not like. I didn't know much of anything before I went into that military school about myself and what I really liked and what I really, really did not like. But it was shown to me in a period of 1 year. And so I would hope, I know in Robbie's story, she has a pretty dramatic story from that era between 17 and 19. And so I always consider those of us lucky that have some kind of a drama early in the game, right? So that starts this wheel going, this wheel of our developmental journey that, again, the key to this understanding our success in our developmental process of eventually enlightenment or self-realization, or whatever you want to call it, but it's really the element that would express itself as enthusiasm in a new earth, begins in this time when we make a break. And at first it's very scary. There's some kind of death going on, and we maybe don't know anything other than, wow, that was really hard. And then little by little, we start putting the pieces together of our new, right? So we're leaving the tribal, we're entering into that full-blown egoic journey of who am I, what do I want? And most of us, because we're grow up in a culture where there's a pretty heavy dose of conditioning, most of us learn a similar message about what do I want? What I want is, well, I guess I want love, I want things, I want comfort, I want adventure, I want whatever. I mean, you know, through the television shows, and you know, there's these ideas. For some people, it's like the family and the white picket fence. You know, father knows best, and all those shows from the early 1960s. You know, Bonanza. I remember the shows that influenced me. It's like, wow, very wholesome family values. I mean, that really is very appealing. But actually, because of what had happened to me earlier, I really couldn't go back and actually believe that was for me. The Bonanza, the father knows best, the Leave It to Beaver, the happy family. That really didn't exist for me as a child. And so I couldn't even imagine creating it myself, getting married, having a couple kids, and having that kind of normal existence. But for many, many people, that does work for them, at least for a while. And so again, depending on your journey, this is what you're doing in your 20s and 30s is, again, the core of this egoic mind. It's establishing a sense of self. Who am I? You know, the body is really the element. Okay, I was born, and I told you last time about the name. So my child name was Buzzy. And so I identified as Buzzy, member of this family I didn't really like very much, family I wanted to get away from. But that was my identity in the body. Okay, and then I started in my mid-20s starting to construct, what is Louis? What is Louis? What defines Louis? But again, luckily in my journey, just like I said, at 17, relatively early, I got a pronounced division that would set me off on this journey of the search. And then at 33, another one, and we'll get to that later. But in your journey, think about the core pieces of that construction that you're making. We're all making a construction. It's not real. It's just something that we're making up. That is this egoic identity. Now, we were chatting a little bit, Robbie, earlier. Finn was asking me a question about Mary Williamson and A Course in Miracles. And so I'll refer a lot today to A Course in Miracles because it was my devotion for 25 years and material that I really know well. So in A Course in Miracles language, we develop partly from our karma, which maybe we brought into this world from past lives, partly from our childhood experience. But in our early 20s, middle 20s, late 20s, probably continuing well into the 30s and 40s for most people, we're developing the sense of self that is clearly egoic. And the ego is all about deciding what is good, what is bad, what do I want, what do I don't want. Okay, so there's a great line from A Course in Miracles that says, anything in this world that you hold as good and useful and worth striving for can hurt you and will do so. Okay, so this is the definition of special love. That because we as an egoic entity, we don't feel complete. We're searching for something that'll help us feel more complete. Anything that we're striving for is basically an affirmation of this, what in Course in Miracles language, very strong language, self-hatred. It's a denial of my own greatness, my own divinity, my own whole being that I am. I know now that I am. But back then I didn't know that, right? So I'm basically hating myself by denying my truth, denying my divinity, and then projecting, okay? The ego has the two tools, right? Denial and projection. So I deny my greatness, and then I go looking for it. I project it on, oh, that teacher, or oh, that lover, or oh, that book, or oh, that film, or oh, whatever. We project greatness onto these other things, and we go trying to absorb them. Think about your first great love, romantic relationship. It tends to be this thing when we're young. It tends to be kind of like, crazy love, as compared to, say, having a more mature relationship that's founded on common principles and all that. In the beginning, romantic love, which is crazy love, is this idea that, again, because I'm not complete, I'm not full, I'm not whole, this other can help me. But since it's actually built on a lie, what typically happens in any romantic relationship is after the honeymoon is over, you little by little start allowing the, the foundation of special love, which is hatred, to come through. And I can remember my first marriage, and I can remember my second marriage very clearly. Boy, it's like clear as bell. I hate this about her. You know, the very thing that might have attracted me to her. And again, this is again part of, as we look at it from this perspective of, I think all of us are old enough to have perspective on our youth and our young adulthood. With perspective, you see that, you know, what was actually coming is a very great lesson. You know, it has to hurt in order for me to eventually let go of that painful illusion that romantic love could heal me, make me feel whole, all of that. So again, we all have this, you know, if we were doing this timeline, you have these little marks where it's like, and what you can even do is you can do, when I did mine years ago, I used one color for just the timeline, and then maybe used the color red for relationships. And it's like, woohoo, big love. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm so devastated. You know, in my life, it went up and down about 10 times, right, Robbie? Robbie's got a similar story. You know, it's like we're slow learners. We do the same thing again and again and again. But the point is eventually to be learners, right? It doesn't really matter how many times it takes us to learn the lesson. But in A Course in Miracles, if you can actually just see from the beginning that anything that I was going to be striving for is going to hurt me, right? Anything, whatever it is, any form that I think might improve my life or make me feel more secure or make me feel more successful or whatever, it's all built on this illusion, because, you know, the illusion comes out of this idea that I'm not already that. I'm not already complete and whole and beautiful and strong and these things. So it's like on the foundation of self-hatred, we develop all of these special love relationships. And so what we're seeing now collectively in the world is, especially in North America, but all around the world, but it's keenly evident in North America, because our culture embedded in us this special love, like, if you get this, if you get this, if you get this. I mean, collectively, most everybody believed it. And now collectively, everybody's really upset, because guess what? We were screwed. You know, the capitalists, it was a game that they set us up in, and we were all destined to lose at the game of capitalist, materialist success. That was just, you know, by design. And so you have a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people in North America, and probably most people in Europe, are feeling very disillusioned, disappointed, and probably pretty angry. And that's why you see it, you know, coming out with all these riots and all this stuff. It's like they're really not angry at anything or anybody. They might believe, they might make up I'm angry because of Trump, or I'm angry because of this. It's not really that. They're just angry. They're angry. And so, again, the ego would deny that, I'm angry at myself. The ego says, I need to project this anger onto somebody else. So you just pick anybody. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you pick. And so that's why this whole polarity that Lynn was referring to, again, this time of equinox, where it's like, okay, let's try to take a breath and look at the polarity. Whatever the polarity is, it doesn't matter. It's imbalance, because you've decided to put your allegiance, you put your energy, you put your attention, you put your identity into something that's not balanced. It's not in harmony. So it's like, for instance, this whole idea of romantic love. What I came to realize later in life is that, you know, I was really seeking the feminine queen energy of me in a woman. And I remember the day that I realized this. In fact, I think Robbie was actually part of that journey when I was doing this thing, calling for the queen. And I finally realized it had nothing to do with a lover or a wife or whatever. It actually had to do with me. It had to do with me coming to terms with my wholeness, which means, boy, I'm equally masculine and feminine, equal. I may be in a masculine body, but actually parts of me are more feminine than masculine. And I hope everybody in their developmental journey gets to that point where they can go, I'm equally male and female, masculine and feminine. And so it's like you can even understand in our culture why there's so much gender, whatever, I'm not sure to call it confusion, but people are like, we don't have to live by this very strict heterosexual polarity that we were taught as kids or taught in church or whatever, that this is what you're supposed to do. It's kind of like, well, if there's no rules, then now what? And so I think that's what we're going to see in this whole process over the next, I would say, 8 years. In fact, I want to talk a little bit about this collective timeline as part of today's talk. Remind me, Lynn, if I forget. But I think in the next 6 to 8 years, we're going to see this huge balancing wave wash over the earth, where all of the different parts of the polarity are going to be seen as like a fraud. Like, well, that wasn't what it was about. It's not about being rich or poor or being black or white or being masculine or feminine. There's something else that defines us that's not part of the polarity. And so this is like, again, the baby steps we're taking into a new earth, where it's like, okay, if the polarity doesn't define us, then what does define us? And so again, this is that process individually where we change the definition that we hold for ourselves. Okay, so and I talked about that idea before. Okay, for me, child, Buzzy, adult person, Louis, Sun King now describing something else. Something is not limited by the body or by the person. And so again, it doesn't matter what limitations we placed on ourselves in our own developmental journey, whatever it was, that's what again eventually hurt us. And this is again the 5 steps of forgiveness that we'll go through in detail today. That's the process of forgiveness, is actually correcting the original mistake that I made. So forgiveness in the end has nothing to do with anybody else. It has nothing to do with anything outside of me at all. So the very first stage of the forgiveness, I would call freedom from the past, is simply recognizing that whatever decisions I made in the past, whatever identifications I made in the past, whatever they were all incorrect. They were all limitations, and they needed correction. And so the first part of the forgiveness process is to make the corrections, which I know when I was doing work in the 12 steps, there was a process called making amends, where you would actually say you're sorry to the person who seemed to offend you or hurt you or whatever, because they didn't really do what you thought they did. You did it in your own mind. And so you I shared that last week about my dad, hating my dad for 55 years, and then trying to figure out, how do I make amends? And I did the best I could with him, to spend time with him and try to accept him and appreciate him as he was. And then I had the gift of a higher level of blessing, which would move me into enthusiasm around my understanding of my relationship with my father. But again, it had to do with my relationship with myself, because most children, I'm a boy, only son, I would project my king energy onto my father and go, he's the king, and I need to love him, he's the king. Well, he wasn't a very good king. And so again, that projection is what I eventually had to take back and go, the only way for me to fully, this is what we're going to be doing in these 5 steps, is realize that simple denial and projection being undone means I am that. And so that basic spiritual expression, I am that. You can apply that phrase to anything. I am that. I am that. So all of these things, because again, a big part of the problem people are having now is reeling in the denial and the projections, not just about the glorious, brilliant, beautiful self that you are, but also the very damaged, angry, hurt, fearful human that you are. We carry that. Even though we rise above that, that doesn't define us. We still carry it. We carry this ancestral energy, this tribal mind that lives in us. And so if you see it in someone else and go, wow, that is so sad, that is so pathetic that it's in that person. Well, guess what? you're not really seeing it fully in you. Because people that really go through a lifetime where they face their demons and eat their shadow and do all that, guess what? And you see it in people like Nelson Mandela and other great beings, maybe the Dalai Lama, and I'm sure others. They've gotten to a point in their own journey where they're mature enough where they don't play that game any longer of denial and projection. So they can see their humanity in everyone who suffers, and they can see their divinity also clearly in themselves, not in a projected God or whatever. So it's like this Taoist symbol again. Imagine that your being is this Taoist symbol where you have this polarity, this duality in you. You have the masculine and the feminine. You have good and you have evil. You have all of this. And one of the great things about the Tao symbol is that in the light half, there's a smaller circle of dark, and in the dark half, there's a smaller circle of light. So it's kind of like the idea is that as you explore the depths of your greatness and the depths of your humanity, like you will see the opposite. The opposite, the opposite, if you really say going into your greatness, that little dark spot in there, that's your humanity reminding you, don't get arrogant. Don't think you're better than others. You're basically seeking the balance. You are great and you're still in the human body. And if you go into the darkness, as I did in my journey, you get to this point where things look so desperately dark, and then there's the light in the middle of the darkness, reminding you that, you know what, this isn't all you are. You're not just this broken, wretched human being. You're also the divine self manifesting through your form, and blah, blah, blah. So it's an amazing, amazing thing. What we're talking about here on the equinox is that coming into a sense of wholeness and balance is everything. There's many teachers and teachings that might lead you to believe that the goal is to become better than or higher than or whatever. And it's like, no, it's about becoming whole, happy, and free, right, Lynn? That's been the motto of the OASIS Center for Conscious Living. Whole, happy, and free would describe this new earth consciousness, that by being whole, I can relax, right? I can relax and actually feel happy, like, wow, what a relief. I don't have to be this or that. It's just one of those things that we're, again, in my life at 68 now, a while back having a revelation that I don't need the feminine to fill me, to bring me into balance. I am that. And there's a happiness going, and obviously then a freedom. There's nothing that I need to do. There's nothing that I need to find. And now I have a relationship with a woman that's totally unlike anything that I was ever trying to accomplish in my life, because Kati she's not this feminine, she's just like another person. And we just kind of hang out together, and I don't need her to be anything for me. And so we're friends. And that would be, I think, the essence of a true relationship, is you're friends, because you don't need each other. So again, anything in this world and so if you do this process with your own life, look at the things that you truly valued and see how they hurt you. And it doesn't mean that you are wrong in valuing them. Like, again, I like referring to Robbie just because I know her so well, but you can say, I really value my family, my children, and it hurts. It hurts, right? So it doesn't mean it's wrong to value. It just means accept that it will hurt. When I value my little daughter so much, and I think vividly sometimes about her falling off the cliff and dying. And it's like, wow, that would hurt so much. And yet, am I going to stop valuing her just because it would hurt if she died? What I think about these child abduction things. What if she got abducted and got sold into a sex ring or whatever? It's like, holy shit, that would hurt so much. Does that mean I don't value her? I don't adore her? So the point isn't, again, because again, some spiritual paths would say, well, just stop, stop attaching yourself, stop caring, stop loving, stop. That's not the point. The point is to allow this to bring you into greater awareness of everything that is. It's wonderful to care so much. It's wonderful to adore. It's wonderful to have these feelings and just recognize that, oh, okay, that's part of it. Part of it, the balancing thing is that, wow, it's, I try to talk on a very regular basis with my daughter about my death. And it's wonderful to hear a 4.5-year-old talk openly about, well, daddy's going to die, and when daddy dies, la 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 la. It's like not pretending like it's some big secret. Daddy's an old daddy, and so it should be very clear in her awareness. And Robbie, you weren't here before, or actually no one was here before, but it's so cool that I'm attracting this doula, this woman from France who's going to move here, become part of the community, and just to have Amelie grow up in a rich environment where she sees people going through the death process over and over again. And it's delightful that in this culture in general, people are not shipped off to a hospital to die. Most everybody, say Kati's grandparents, your parents, most everybody that you know is going to die at home with you. There's no such thing here as, oh, ship them off to the hospital to die. Most people don't go for, if they're having a heart attack, they don't send them in an ambulance to the hospital. If they're 95 years old, it's like, oh, it looks like it's time to go. And so everybody gathers around and spends time with that person as they go. Again, it's interesting not having grown up in this culture, but just seeing how refreshing it is not to have this sort of built-in, oh, we have to do everything we can to stop the person from dying. It's like, it's time. It's time. And they even have that attitude when it comes to like a child stillborn or a child that dies at 6 months or whatever. They're like, they use that Catholic kind of overlay. Well, God wants the child in heaven. But it's just a much more accepting relationship, with death. So
Louis, I would, that just brings me the point of what we're going on through right now in this pandemic, where I have heard some teachers call this a war on death, that we are, not allowing that death process for those that maybe the virus is their ticket out of here. But we're doing so many measures because of this slight fear that this virus will cause the death to somebody. And so it's interesting to see that perspective on what we're living through, this whole potential death process in this whole life review time that we're in, this incubation cocoon time.
Yeah. I don't say anything. I don't want to I don't want to get into a social media thing, just fighting with people. But it just kind of amazes me, all these retired gringos down here that are in their 70s and 80s, and they're like, you have to protect that person because they might get sick and they might die. It's like, you're 85 years old. What's the problem? Like, why would your death be a problem? And I would say to anybody that's not actively like engaged in life and making a contribution and all that, it's like, why would you, for 1 minute, look at your death as some kind of a negative thing? It's like, again, if you talk to people from other cultures, and especially like indigenous peoples, and that whole concept would be foreign to them. Like, what? Why would you fight against the very thing that is your freedom, that is your release? And people that have, some of you have watched the Zach Bush, this medical doctor that has a beautiful way of talking about the process of dying and stepping into total love and acceptance. And it's like, if anybody really could embrace how beautiful death is, it'd be like, are you kidding? Let's get on with it. To spend 1 week or 1 month or 1 year longer in the world, especially in a suffering body. Are you kidding me? So this is a big part of the education, that as the world is fighting this crazy fight with death, the other side of it, which is what I call evolution, is saying, hey, baby boomers, guess what? You're all going to be dead in 20 years. Just get on with it. Don't make a big thing about it. It's like, get back into harmony with nature as it is, because nature does not make a big stink about death. If you're an antelope, guess what? You're expecting someday a lion or another big cat or something. is going to jump on your back and eat you. I mean, that's just like, that's how nature deals with death. There may be an instinct in the moment to fight it, but actually if you watch a lot of nature videos, it's pretty cool. Usually when the animal's taken down by the predator, they just kind of go limp and just, well, that's it. It's okay. It's like, why? So again, part of my we'll talk, this will be sort of the focus of our gathering next week is really conscious dying, which is again part of this process of our developmental journey, but also making friends with your actual death, so that you're not spending your last year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever dreading this thing that's coming. It's kind of like, I would hope for any of us that are in the conscious living circle, that it's kind of like you would want every year, every developmental part of your life to be the best thing that ever happened. Like there's things that are available now to me at 68 that never would have been available to me 20 years ago. It's just, doors open, and the fact that I could do this thing in community and have, most of the people around me are going to be women, and not have it be a big problem. At 48, it would have been a problem. I still would have been like, ooh, she's a babe. That's it's like, that isn't where I want to be. That's not what I want to be doing as a leader of a spiritual community. So it's like, thank God for developmental process where it's like, oh, I can relax, I can smile, I can feel that sense of, by becoming, like I said, whole, not needing a romantic or sexual person or relationship or whatever to add to a lack of wholeness. It's like we can relax and go, wow, that's it. Like all of that becomes, part of, we talked about the biodanza, remember, vitality, sexuality, affectivity, creativity, divinity. Again, this is the idea of this wholeness where it's like I'm responsible for my vitality. And a big thing I wanted to at least bring up, and this would bring back to Zach Bush again, is looking at the relationship that we have with our body, and looking at the ways in which we've abdicated our authority to doctors and beliefs about disease and death and all that. And it's kind of like, part of this process to become whole is to say, I'm fully responsible for my vitality and my health. And I would say in general that as we work on enlivening and strengthening our energy body, and I mentioned this in a past class, I know that itself takes care of these elements of our being, but especially our vitality, and I would say also our sexuality, that these are things that in the past we might have felt needy of others to help us with our vitality, help us with our sexuality. And I'm hoping in our maturity, guess what? I'm fine. It's like, I take it to an extreme, which most people wouldn't. I refuse to take any supplements, any vitamins, anything at all. And I just say, if I'm really sun king, I believe that my vitality comes from the sun. So if I'm out in the sun at least 1 hour, 2 hours, I'm actually out in the sun most of the day. It's like, and you've even heard in the early days, they were saying, if you're out in the sun and getting a lot of fresh air, that's going to be your best defense against the virus, right? Now we're starting to talk about vaccines and all this crazy stuff. But in the beginning, some of that wisdom was coming through saying, just be healthy, be strong. If you're healthy and strong, have a good immune system, guess what? The virus isn't going to hurt you at all. And I think there's many people that still believe that even if a vaccine was available, they would say, I don't need it, thank you. My immune system is fine. I can take care of myself. So that's, again, a big part of this developmental process, is that we step into the kingdom, right? The king, queen energy, where it's like we become whole, and in our wholeness, right, happy and free. So I want to go back to the 5 steps of forgiveness, or what I call freedom from the world, 5 Faces of Freedom. This is a book I wrote a long time ago, and at the time I had to make up the name David James to be the teacher, because I wasn't quite ready to say it's me. It's call it David James. But so freedom from the past, that was pretty easy. Freedom from the world is the second stage. And that's basically recognizing that there's nothing in the world, there's nothing outside of me that I need to fill me. There's nothing in the world that I'm going to strive for or identify with. It's just again a matter of letting go. Letting go of the past is one thing, but letting go of the world means I'm actively walking in the world without any belief that there's some part of this world that I need in order to feel whole, happy, and free. The next step, and these first three steps are all related, but it's freedom from the future. It's an amazing thing to be able to walk in the world without a need for the future. And you can see in psychology, there's quite a bit of I can remember back from my studies in psychology that they would basically say that your unhealed past is what creates the need for a future, right? If there's something from your past that has left you feeling unfulfilled, whatever, that you're going to create something in the future that would hopefully balance, right? Balance that vacuum, that hole, that brokenness from the past. So if you've totally forgiven your past, totally let go of the past as having any power over you at all, then you don't need to create a future. You can simply be in the world and allow life to unfold a day at a time. And it's really quite a remarkable thing. And it may be impossible for someone younger to actually achieve this sort of level of balance and equanimity where you don't need a future. I think as we get older, it behooves us, just because there's less and less future there, to develop a relationship with the future that, again, is not a needy one. It's like we don't need 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. So again, this is just part of this relationship that we've had with the world of time and space, where we tend to make up these illusions, like I need time. So time is one of those things, whether you call it past or future, as we collapse into this singularity, into this still point, the center. And this is where, meditations can really help to really visualize in this powerful center of your being, this energetic reality that doesn't require a translation into the space-time world of neediness, okay? Because what we're going to get to, and I mentioned this before, the last step of our developmental journey, this level that I would call self-realization, is the recognition of the singularity, the recognition of the one thing, that you don't need the world. The world actually exists for you as an opportunity, that your world, your life, your day, and so that's why, Robbie, we were talking the other day, it doesn't matter any longer what job you have or where you live or whatever. If you recognize that that's not what defines me or my life at all, that's simply the opportunity, the space-time opportunity that I have today to bring my light, to bring my glory. So there's an amazing freedom that comes from the fact that we don't need it to look like any particular thing. We don't need to move to a different place or have any part of that template change, because the essence of what we're doing is going to be the same every day, no matter where we go, no matter what we're doing. Because that's not the essence of it is not what we're doing or where we are. It's I get to give my best today. And in giving my best, in expressing my highest creativity, that's my happiness, that's my joy, that's my peace of mind, that's life. And so there's an amazing, and this is why I would say for many people, this would be a startling revelation. Like, really? None of that matters. Nothing matters. Nothing in form matters at all. Nothing in form can inhibit, can stop my essential nature from doing what it's designed to do, which is give, to be the portal through which this magnificence shines in the world. So it's like, I mean, just think of how amazing the world. This is what I think is going to happen in the next 6 to 8 years. I think there's going to be a collective revelation about this, and then suddenly the game changes because, oh, we don't have to change the form. We don't have to change the way the game is played because we're not playing that game anymore. We're actually going to play a different game, and a game that's pretty amazing. One of the phrases I think from the Bible is "at play in the fields of the Lord." Like recognizing wherever you are, you can be, if you're awake, if you're paying attention, you can be at play in the fields of the Lord. So it's like everything becomes a happy dance. Everything becomes playful and good and holy and all the words you want to put on it. So it's like we go from this whole division of this is this and this is that to being like, no, there's no opposites. There's only this. There's only this. There's only this. And then this is the total freedom. And, like I said, this the final step is this self-realization. Is that's what I was born to do. Like I was born of my Father to give him this blessing. I wasn't born of this Father to get something from him that I needed. So that's, again, this whole reversal that we talked about. Byron Katie talks about the reversal, which is the essence of A Course in Miracles. It says it's a total reversal of your mind. It's simply, literally reverses it. So it's, it's, that's it. I don't have anything more to say. That's it.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I have as writing down the labels of the 5 faces of freedom. So I have first, freedom from the past. 2 is freedom from the world. 3, freedom from the future. So what was actually 4 and 5?
Well, 4, I skipped. 4 is actually the process of self-realization, which is freedom from the self or freedom from the ego. So it's like, if you could look at it like the first step, freedom from the past, is really like stepping out of the tribal mind. You're stepping into the egoic mind. And now with the egoic mind, you got to work on your relationship with the world and your relationship with the future. And when you're able to step out of that needy relationship with the world and the future, now you're getting down to the core statement about yourself. Okay, if I'm not the world, and if I'm not some future image of myself, what am I? And so I would say that self-realization comes when we step through the portal of the 4th step, which is, okay, I'm not this self. Like, I'm not a body. I'm not this person. What am I? So again, this thing is, it's a process of consciously dying to what I am not. And you'll see this in any spiritual tradition. It's not that, not that, not that, not that, not all these other things. Okay, so if it's not this, then what? So then what is the self-realization? Like, I remember years ago reading this book called 3 Magic Words. It was like one of the most amazing books. I still get tingles when I think about it because I was very young, and I'm reading this book, and it's like, he hasn't said the words. He didn't say the words until probably page 150. But I knew what the words were before he said them. And finally, it's like the words. What is it? I am God. I am God. It's like, I remember when I first said it in my own version. I didn't say I am God, but I said it at 38 at my sister's, a year after my sister's memorial service in a church in Amherst, Massachusetts. And I remember standing up in this evangelical church and going, it was on Easter, I am the risen Christ. I mean, and my whole body, I mean, I thought I was going to have a heart attack or a stroke because my heart was pounding so hard because I was about to say the most true thing that I've ever said. And it seemed outrageous, except in that environment. This was like a Course in Miracles Baptist church, black church that had the 2 kids of the preacher. Of course, anyway, people were just like roaring, like, yes! Still many of them believed that, well, no, Jesus is the Christ, you're not. But in actuality, what people really want to hear is that, and this is what Jesus said, right? you are the Christ as much as I am the Christ. I mean, the Christ is literally our willingness to be the portal through which God, the unmanifested, shines through into the world. And of course, Miracles terms, it says, you are the light of the world. And so to say that, I am the light of the world, it's like, that's our literal truth. So when we step into self-realization, what am I? I am the light of the world. I am God. I am God's representative, right? You can say I'm not God, but it's like we become God. The Trinity becomes unified in our experiential manifestation in that moment. That's what enthusiasm means, that you are feeling God inside you. You're feeling God's presence. You're feeling God's energy. You're feeling this magnificence flowing through you. So literally in that moment, you are God. It's, again, it's a mind-blowing thing only because we tend to still want to think we're more comfortable with duality or the Trinity language, but to actually bring it into the singularity, what would you say? I am that. I am that. It's like, bam. It's like, wow. It's like, where do you go from there? Then you have to redesign your whole life, because if that's the fact, and it is the fact, how now do I go on living? So this is what we're here to talk about. Okay, so we're creating this new earth. We're creating this new template. It's not the old space-time duality world. It's a new world. It's a new earth. It's something new. So we have these elements: acceptance, appreciation, enthusiasm. We have, so you can say the basic principles are oneness, right? The singularity, oneness arising from stillness, right? Inspiring simplicity. That this would actually describe the way we live by stepping into our wholeness, our oneness, by recognizing our true function. We can relax in this deep state of relaxation we could call stillness. It's like there's a term in the Taoist tradition called Wu Wei, W-U-W-E-I. Wu Wei would be this way of operating from stillness. I don't need to do anything. But what's the next thing? What's the next thing? It's just like the next step. You look at Zen, you look at all the different teachings. They all talk about this idea. How do we live with this deep presence? And then we act out of that presence. So we're actually accomplishing great things, but not because we want to or because we need to. We're just able to do it because we have this infinite abundance available to us, this infinite creative potentiality available to us. And so every day we're able to do amazing things, great things, but they don't even look great. They don't even feel like, oh, that was pretty amazing. I just built a stone cottage. Whoa. It's like every day I carried a rock. Big deal. What's the big deal about carrying a rock? Well, guess what? After a while, a big pile of rocks became this, I think, amazing in its simplicity. People look at it like, boy, it's kind of like a teenager would build or a child would build. It's like, yeah. So what's wrong with that? I painted the new, I have to take a picture of it and send it to you. I painted the new OASIS Eco Resort and OASIS Center for Conscious Living with a bunch of different colors. And Kathy says, it looks like kindergarten, like you're teaching, you have a kindergarten class. Well, why not? Why shouldn't it be fun like a kindergarten school, right? Why should it, oh, the OASIS Center for Conscious Living, oh, it's so serious. Oh my God. It's like, no, the whole point is we're going to take all of this stuff in a much lighter, happier way. That's the whole point of this new earth, is that we're going to be operating out of this sense of delight, out of the sense of like joyful, playful presence. And it's like, who cares what other people think?
Right. So, wow, very interesting information. I just wanted to open it up to hear from others, what questions you have or comments or something that strikes you or something that was interesting for you to learn about, and just give that opportunity for anyone who wants to share anything. Is there anybody that something strikes something that you'd like to share.
Well, I'll share. I mean, I've got a lot of things I could share, but I am going to say probably the thing I've noticed about myself in the last, maybe since COVID, in the last year, maybe longer, but maybe not. I have so totally relaxed about my children and feeling like I need to change them. You know, I would argue with my oldest about what's really going on, and I've let go of all that now. Once in a while, I'll send him something that I think might be interesting for him to see, but we don't argue. I went to visit my youngest son who just bought a home in Somerset on Saturday. And I'm a healthy eater and I like things a certain way. And I walk into his place and I go, "What's that sweet smell?" It smelled like, you know, like a Glade air freshener or something. And he goes, "Oh, that's my vapor, my vape. So you guys know what that is? Yeah. So, yeah. And I just said, "Oh, well, I think you should open a window, you know, get some fresh air in here." I didn't say anything about it. I didn't lecture him. In the past, I would have said something. And I said, "Well, what do you want to do for dinner?" after I spent some time at his place. And he goes, "Let's just go to the Dairy Queen." So, you know, rather than say, "Well, isn't there something healthier we could eat or someplace we can go?" I mean, we're in Somerset, Wisconsin. What can I say? There's nothing there except bars and fast food. So we went to Dairy Queen and had chicken strips. And I enjoyed it. And I realized what I want more than anything is to love him and just spend time with him. He knows all of the things that are important to me, and we've talked about eating healthy and doing healthy things through the years. He knows all of that. He gets to choose now, and I don't care what he chooses. I still love him, and I'm going to let him know every day that I'm on this earth that I love him and I accept him for what he chooses. And that's a change. That's a change. And Louis knows that because he's seen me through the years struggle with wanting my kids to be more spiritual, be healthier, be more open-minded, look at things other than mainstream media, you know, a lot of things. And I've just realized I think COVID has helped bring this home even more than anything, that I just want to love them and let them know they're loved and just give that to them.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because I think that is a metaphor for all of us in the big picture. So what you have in your microcosm going on in your family is that we are all here to love humanity wherever we are at with our polarity, you know, that we just honor everyone for their views, even if it seems so outrageous or so different from what we have really embraced, and start to look at, well, why am I so strongly attached to this view as well? So I think all of this is opening us up to looking at where we hold a belief. And then for me, it's deciding not to even have a belief, like just to be so neutral and not even take a side. Then I don't have a side to argue against. So it's wonderful that we are learning through this process. Anyone else? Thank you, Robin. Vicki, yeah, hi.
Hi, Len. This is so true. Very, very good, Robin. The duality that we've lived in for so long is registering now because we have time and space to acknowledge it. And that unity piece, that allowing piece, that letting others be, and then being that ourselves, whatever that is, and really enjoying the playfulness. Louis, that is so important, the play. This is something that we really haven't registered in our life much. It's been striving, seeking, working towards. And so this allowing things to come to us and being open in love and light and accepting others, ourselves, our feelings, our emotions, and not attaching to anything that would take us off of that alignment and balance. I think that too is so important at this time.
Exactly. And you're living a lot of that with your family and all the things happening and the dramas going on there, and just having that you're just holding space for that loving presence to allow everything to unfold.
Yeah, that's our practice.
Yeah.
That's our practice.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zani?
Yes, Robin, I can identify so much with what you're saying. Going through with the same kind of situation with my children. We went up north in August for our family time at the cabin, and it was just so different this year. I just felt like I was in this just present moment with just this joy coming out of my heart, and just so appreciative to be together. And I think it is true that COVID and being separated has just brought what I knew already was important in my life, just brought that more, even just the clarity of it was just amazing. And it just felt so good. It really felt good.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just interject this idea that COVID is a beginning of a process that is allowing us to wake up to what's really meaningful. Like if there was a headline tomorrow that said the end of the world is 5 years from tomorrow, people would go like, holy shit, okay, 5 years, we got 5 years. What are we going to do with these 5 years? We're going to just go cuckoo with loving each other, cuckoo with just joyful expression. It's kind of like, wow, this is it. This is our opportunity. You've seen movies, right, End of the World or whatever, and there's like this bittersweet thing that comes through this. Like most people, if they're not forced to examine the depth of their beauty, this would help them, right? So COVID is actually helping us get glimmers of, wow, there's something really beautiful in me past the judgments, past the ideas that, again, the ego, and again, we have that response. So it's just like we have a body that would be afraid if we learned that, oh my God, I'm going to die next week. The ego will have its opinion initially that says, the ego's idea would be, this should not be, whatever it is, this should not be. So it's kind of like, okay, I can look at that core fear response that comes out of my tribal self, and then I can look at that judgment part that comes out of that egoic mind, and then if we allow it, this other thing comes through, which is so much more true, so much more meaningful when you feel the love for the people that deserve to be loved, especially the people, Robbie, like your son Chris, that people that have been aching since they were born to be in this loving presence. And so that's what I experienced years ago with my dad. And it's like when it's happening consciously, like if you're in that moment now where it's like, wow, it's now or never, I get to do this. I get to really, really shine my brightest light. It's like, then you actually thank the condition that forced you to choose. It's like, wow, thank you. Thank you, difficult person. Thank you, difficult situation. Thank you, world. Whatever it is, it's like, this is again that idea that, okay, I don't like it, but I accept it. Then it's like, wait a minute, I really appreciate what's going on here. Then feeling this enthusiasm, it's like, all I want to do is love. All I want to do is be in this joyful expression of creative exuberance and whatever. It's like, it's like, that's a new earth. So if we're able to work together to say, okay, we're starting together in this moment of acceptance and not allowing anything to pull us back from that. I mean, there'd be no reason except for actually stupidity, right? Remembering a false idea. If we've gotten to a point now in our conversation where we all can admit that, yes, acceptance is is the baseline. We never want to drop below that. And, again, even if it pops up, it's easily, it pops up, right? Robbie, the thought pops up. I could be judgmental right now. No. Judgmental is it's like childish. The thing that we're born to do is be this fountain of this powerful energy. And I really believe that collectively, what we're going to see in 6 to 8 years is this energy just becomes collectively so real, so vibrant, that our world is going to be transformed. I really deeply believe that. This is something hard to imagine, but if you experience it in your own reality, then you can imagine it for the collective. If it's real for you, it should be real for the world. Now, you might say, well, it can't be real for these other people. That's not the point. That's not the point. There are these 10,000 points or 10,000 points of light. If it's real for us, then it's going to become reality for everybody. They might not see it the same way we see it, but we literally have the power to transform this world into something remarkably different than it is today.
Folks, I gotta leave. I have a design client appointment that I've got to get ready for. So it was great. I hate to say goodbye right now. I look forward to next week. So
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for coming
Robbie.
on.
Thanks for you
nice
shining
to see all your faces. You guys have a blessed week,
You too.
and look forward to next week.
Thank you, hon.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Did anyone else, Finn or John, have anything you wanted to share at all?
I'd kind of like to talk a little bit about the teachers. All of us at some point or another have had teachers. Louis, you're doing it. The Course in Miracles was there as a teacher. There are lots of different teachers, and I've kind of wondered how that all fits into the four. I didn't get the fifth of the list, but the four elements that you talked about, because there seems to be some. I'm just trying to understand when someone elects to be a teacher, how that fits into these four that you've shared.
Well, the developmental process for us collectively has been always, pointed to by these teachers, whether they're in ancient times or, throughout history. There's always been a few points of light, even through the darkest times.
Sure.
But I think that, at least in our collective history, let's just say the past few hundred years, I think you could see that certain individuals, maybe you wouldn't necessarily call them teacher, like Rudolf Steiner or Nicholas Tesla or whatever, certain bright lights that might have been in the field of science or music or whatever. There was something in their personalities that was very compelling, and it might have been something that caused them a lot of personal troubles. We see in more modern times certain teachers like Osho and Trungpa Trungpa, and certain teachers that shined a pretty bright light also had a lot of controversy around them. And that was probably the greatest attribute of teachers in past times. It certainly includes Jesus, that they had to endure the wrath, the unwillingness. Back in his day, you could say that people around him were as dumb as dogs. They just didn't have the capacity. Jesus said that. He said, "I have so much to tell you, but you could not bear to hear it." The people couldn't bear to hear it, and so today it's much easier to be a similar kind of teacher, as powerful and clear as maybe Jesus was, because there's a much greater acceptance. There's a much more collective opening to this energy. So it doesn't take something as remarkable as it did in past times. I'm not sure, John, if that's addressing your question.
Well, I look at things like freedom from the future. How does that play out for teachers?
Well, if you look, what's an example? I mean, I think Eckhart Tolle would be a good example of a teacher. Byron Katie, two that I know, Adi Ashante or whatever. There's teachers that would clearly be talking about a non-dual reality, right? So a non-dual reality is a reality without past and future. It's just about a presence. So they're talking to the same thing about not requiring a future, because the future is basically something that our egoic mind made up. That time is something that we've more or less constructed as a way of talking about the world, the past and whatever. But anybody, I think most any of these teachers would talk about, or at least point toward, the non-dual reality, which is all about the present moment. That's all we're really experiencing. We just have a mental desire to sort of catalog things as, oh, that was yesterday and that's tomorrow, when in fact, neither one of them actually ever existed. It's just a mental construct. So freedom from the future would certainly be something that I think any teaching would point toward, because again, these constructs are what have kept us small, kept us out of our greatest authentic power. Because if you're thinking, well, I'm not going to get around to it today, but maybe next week, that's a typical thing that we do to deny and project our, sort of the immediacy of the moment, because the universe, the unmanifested that Eckhart Tolle would talk about, or God, this energetic principle wants us to be paying attention right now, being in it right now. It's like this idea that, well, right now is not really available, so get around to it in the future. So I think this teaching, the way I'm presenting it, is just my own way of taking all these other teachers and putting this wisdom into a package that's actually kind of like manageable. Like, I can see the steps, right? When I was in the 12-step program, it was really important that step 1 was step 1 and step 3 was step 3. And, you didn't get to step 11. I wanted to jump, I don't know if you know the 12 steps, but, I wanted to jump ahead because I'm a high achiever. It's like, no, slow down, stay, because really, when you're really doing the 12-step program, nothing really happens unless you get step 1, right? Which is, to really learn, I have to recognize that I don't really know. To really change, it takes that surrendering that all of us have been through. That's why I say, we all need the hard lessons of our lives, because that's what's brought us to a place of openness. I need to learn another way, because this is too painful. And again, that's that idea of stepping out of those first 3 steps, the past, the world, and the future. All that has been designed to hurt us enough where we would open to what's really true, what's really meaningful. And
would even the label of saying teacher, it's almost like freedom from the world, where we don't create, we are all teachers. Our children have been my greatest teacher for me, as without that label. So that might even be part of what I'm seeing as, freedom from the world, that label.
Yeah, any teacher, I think that's true to the teaching, would say that okay, I call myself a teacher. I became a student and teacher of A Course in Miracles right away, understanding what A Course in Miracles would say. Teaching is just an accelerated form of learning. You're a student, but you want to accelerate your process, so you teach. So, right, we're always teaching what we want to learn, right? Teaching what we want to learn. And there comes a point in time where, oh, I don't need to be a teacher because I have something you don't. It's like there would only be a certain enjoyment in being with a group of others and talking about something which is very, very common. Again, the key to any great teaching or great teacher would be that he or she's pointing toward the reality that all of us share. Not like, oh, I have it and, good luck for you. It's like, no, it's not special. In fact, that's why I think when we really get into our power, we become very much like children because it's so fun. It's so easy. It's not like, oh, this is such a mystery. Teachers that say, oh, you have to go through these very arduous steps, and oh my goodness, you have to read all of these books, and it's going to take you, 3 years of psychotherapy, and that's a low-level teacher that just wants to, right? Just wants to keep you in bondage. So I truly think like we're getting to a point where we are so close to the rapture, right? With in Christian language, the rapture, or this idea of we've entered the apocalypse. We've entered end times, and again, it only looks bad if you're in that caterpillar consciousness that says, "Oh, the transformation into the butterfly to the caterpillar is the end of the world." So we're in that cocooning process, and the caterpillars are really afraid. They're really angry. They're really like, we're screwed. Ruth Bader John, whatever so people are all saying like, now that Ruth is gone, we're screwed. We're fucked. It's like, really? Just because an 85-year-old woman dies? Like, they're thinking like caterpillars, like the future of the world depends on the fairness of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. How does actually that have anything to do with a new earth? It's like this dying construct that a country or a political entity or whatever defines what we're truly here to be doing. So people are freaking out because they see it crumbling. It's crumbling before their eyes. And to me, this is like the happy dance I've been waiting for several decades. It's like, you kidding me? Yeah, John. I think you're going to say something.
No, just thank you so much. I appreciate the perspective.
Oh, sure. Yep. Yeah, no, like you were saying, Lynn. I mean, we are born to be teachers in that we're born to broadcast the message, but there comes a time when it's clearly reversed. Like, wait a minute, it's like teaching and learning, and it's none of that actually makes any sense. It only made sense in that space-time idea that, oh, at 17, I needed to learn this. At 30, I needed to learn that. It's like, and eventually, hopefully, we get to the point where we step into this realization that, wow, the space-time thing that was this life or our collective history is actually just a construct. And if you can look at it from another view outside of time and space, it's not so serious. It's not so, none of it's the way it seems. And eventually we realize that always there was this shimmering, radiant truth, just, looking to poke through. Oops.
Right.
I lost something.
Your video.
video.
I was going to say too that what we're going through is really this huge part of empowerment, so that we don't give our power away to all those teachers that are out there, or even like doctors. Why would a doctor know more about what I need for my health when I tune in to my body and my needs? So all these systems are being deconstructed and reconstructed so that we have this power. We don't give our power or our happiness away to any politician or to a doctor or, to all these that we've looked up to, and they have good advice. They've studied their curriculum to share what they know about that system that taught them. But I think for me, I've really just been tuning into what is my needs and what does my body feel, and I can do my own muscle testing or my own diagnosis to understand more without giving that power away. So.
Right. And Lynn, you said earlier that the sort of this collective fear of death, and that the system is trying to use death to scare everybody, whether it's death of your body or death of a system or death of a whatever. It's like, that's the key. The key is, and we can talk about that more next week, that really investigating death. What is death? and seeing beyond the illusion of death, that death has no power. So for us if we can take our power back to the point where there's no longer anything that's uh, the death of the death of nothing can have power over us. Just like, say, the freedom from the past is over, it can hurt me not. Well, once we get to a point in our realization that death has no power, then we're free. We're free to just enjoy and make our greatest contribution in a time where it appears that death and dissolution is what's happening. When in fact we're sitting back going, he looks that way. Just we're literally seeing the world, and everything is happening in the world in a different light. That's remarkable, and it's a gift, because we're not. People keep putting a burden. They think they're helping the world. Oh, I want to help, but they're actually putting a burden by saying there's something wrong, but I'm going to try to fix it. I'm going to give my money or give my energy or give whatever to try to fix this wrong. When in fact, if you take away the burden of that judgment in the first place, you've given the world and everybody in it the best gift possible. So like Robbie was saying about giving that gift to her son, we can give this gift to the whole world, going, it's absolutely perfect. It's absolutely perfect what's happening right now. Absolutely every step is perfect, because nothing could be other than perfect. And, again, it's a conversation stopper with most anybody. If you just say, well, boy, I see it as perfect. I see it as beautiful. They're like, what? Again, it's an opportunity to teach. If someone says, can you explain that to me? How is this beautiful, what's happening with the COVID virus? I'll say, okay, if you actually want me to tell you, I'll tell you what's beautiful. It's like, again, it's why I'm referring to Zach Bush, a medical doctor, that would say the COVID virus is not anything to be afraid of. He said that literally. He said death is nothing to be afraid of. If we befriend death, and we befriend then all of the virus and bacteria, all of the biome that's part of this beautiful expression of life itself, which cannot be extinguished. Life, the big L, life, cannot be extinguished. You drop your body, you're going to realize that your life was not extinguished. You just don't have a body anymore. But you are going to continue, your consciousness will be as vibrantly alert and awake as it is right now. It'll just be different, because it'll be like, it's interesting, I don't have a body. That's, wow, isn't this really cool? And maybe you won't even think like maybe it'll just be like, whoa. But I guarantee you'll be conscious of that expansion into something much greater than the I. So, but I really think, and this is again can be the focus of next week, that there's something about this conscious dying process where the more we spend time entertaining what's beyond the space-time world, what's beyond our space-time life, the more we spend time, like what I call walking with one foot in eternity, the more we actually develop a relationship with eternity. I think this is vital to what we're going to be awakening to, and then teaching others through our examples, that we actually have learned to identify with something beyond the space-time world. And that's amazing. And that's what I think truly with the great masters, they've actually all had that experience where they've come to identify with something that is not in the world. They recognize the ability to still walk in the world, but what they're identifying with is not of the world, right?
Right, which is, I think, not only is conscious dying about, that dropping of the physical body and a physical death, but when we've done our retreats in the past, it was also about conscious dying to our old ways, to the ego, part of that caterpillar that is cocooning now into this full butterfly. So it can be metaphorically represented by both, where we can have a physical death, and knowing that a physical death is coming. Like you said, if we only said we had 5 years, how much would we fully live, fully prioritize, fully love? And if we look at that same way as far as saying, this is the old self that was me in that cocoon and the caterpillar world. And now what does my life look like when I'm truly free as a butterfly and moving into that? So I think that's what, we'll be paying attention. So it's not going to be just a conversation next time about just the physical death, but really, who are you as you step through this portal and in this grand awakening time that we're in, where we have this huge portal opportunity while we're in the chaos of a new earth coming out. Who do we want to be in our full essence as we move through this? So that will be another exciting, and the logical part of me just has to ask Louis again to define the words of the 5th step on this 5 bases of freedom. And that we'll talk more about that next week. Or is there a 5 even?
Well, yeah, the 5th is literally just what you'd call walking with one foot in eternity, or
Okay.
I just name it as self-realization, capital S.
So what was 4th then? I thought 4th.
That you step into your true self. It's just, 4th is freedom from the ego, freedom from the sense of being a person, being limited by the little self, ego. So it's like, as we step out of the space-time definition, the 5th step is the actual, so again, the first 4 steps are not this, not this, not this, not this. 5th step is this.
Okay.
I am that. I am that. So I would say, again, just say tribal mind. The 3 steps have to deal with the egoic structure. And then the 5th step is the one true step, stepping into, and actually it's not something that, it's literally something that happens to you. You don't do anything. It's just like, as the duality falls away, your mind opens to this glimmering truth. But it is something that we can talk about, where again, I think in the past teachers had a difficult time talking about the radiant, energetic reality because they didn't have the words for it then. Back then, the words were too much about form. And it took Eckhart, I think, in 1999, for me at least, that was the first time. You could say Nikola Tesla, he talked about it, but he was a scientist. But we had to be able to put this in an energetic language to be able to be something that we could actually imagine. I mean, again, energy is beyond words, but energetic, the language of it works for me. I mean, I feel that I can describe it, talk about it. Ultimately, people are only going to know it via the experience of it. As you feel the energy moving through you, then it becomes very real. But, just like, love, and Eckhart Tolle was clear, he didn't really think love was it was a pretty loaded word, so he didn't use love to describe this energetic expression, just because we have lots of different types of ideas about love. But energy is real, and I think most people again, you could talk. Years ago, there was a big thing about science, quantum physics, aligning with spiritual principle, and there's books written about what they were talking about in that world was the same as what mystics were talking about in this world. So that's, again, it was the beginning steps 30 years ago or so that books like the Tao of Physics and things were being written. But again, that was sort of like the baby steps, and I think we're getting to the point where we're really ready to step fully into the mature, full understanding, full expression. Like, there's no big secret anymore. This is like something that anybody can understand. I think I've mentioned before that I could describe to a child. Amelie's maybe just a little young, but probably by the time she's 5 or 6, and say, look at how a leaf absorbs the energy of the sun. And you know what that leaf does? It transmutes that energy from the sun via this process, photosynthesis. It transmutes that energy into oxygen, water, and food. Okay, life. So the green plant makes life. Okay, in the similar process, we at a higher vibratory level than a flower or a tree do the same thing. We transmute this energy that comes from the unmanifested. We transmute it into these elements that we're talking about. Acceptance, appreciation, enthusiasm. Which again, Eckhart didn't use the word love, but you can certainly put love in there for appreciation. But so again, it's utterly simple. There's nothing complicated about it. There's nobody that should be able to say, well, I think it's over here. I mean, how can you argue with energy? I don't think anybody can make an argument that energy is not, a good way to understand God. Whereas a lot of people misunderstood God and caused a lot of trouble. People having an argument about my God being different than your God. And nobody could argue about energy. Could they? Could they say, well, no, energy is this, the energy is that. So I think we're collectively heading into a very beautiful time. And the biggest thing now for any of us is to walk in this world with all of this negativity and not buy it, not believe it, not support it, not agree with it. Anybody that is ears to hear, if they say, well, why aren't you upset about this? It's like, well, if you want me to explain, I'll explain to you why I'm not upset about it, because I see it differently. I see it as something really beautiful, that we're not dying, we're birthing. We're not dying, we're birthing. So, Finn, you have not shared. I'd like to hear your dulcet tones. Is that the word to describe the Irish? The Irish.
I don't think anybody from Belfast has ever been accused of dulcet tones, but I'll take it. No, I was really agreeing with everything, that I heard. It was, this conversation always makes me feel so light, like coming home to this. And it puts things in perspective for me. And it reminded me that the time I learned the most was when I taught. So I could identify with that completely. When Lynn was saying that, I learned by teaching myself, and about not giving power, etc., etc., etc. No, I didn't. I just love to be reminded of all of this, and to find that, like I say, keep saying, a community that shares a vocabulary, or I can share a vocabulary with at the moment. So that's.
Yeah, great. It's like I was saying before, we don't have to be in the same physical space anymore to be in community. But I was sharing with Lynn before the group today that I had a great conversation with a woman in France who is so excited because she's been looking for quite some time for the right place. She really wants to live in conscious community, and she's keenly interested in the whole conscious living, conscious dying thing. And she's just finishing a certification program to be a doula, which is like ideal for me to attract a woman like that, to be here to help people that actually literally want to come here to make their transition. So it's like, wow, it's lovely when you see, without any great effort, all the pieces of the puzzle come together in whatever your own personal expression is. It seems like for all of us, there were periods of years and decades perhaps where it's like, wow, is it really going to happen? Is it really going to happen? It's really going to happen. And then you get to a point, I've experienced this, where it's like, oh, well, it's all just going to happen. Now, without any effort, it's just going to unfold the pieces. And this is, again, something that has to be a really important part of the message, that for us, we're stepping into a very high level of awakened consciousness, and it's not hard. It's not effortful. It's not like special. Again, it should be where you can say to anybody, hey, anybody can do this. Anybody. You just simply have to be willing to die. So that's what, again, we'll spend more time next week talking about how do you actually die to the old forms? How do you die to these things that would keep reinforcing, like I talked about earlier, that denial and projection of your divinity, of your magnificence of your beauty. And because if you asked a lot of people, are you ready to accept your divinity, your magnificence, well, boy, that seems like a lot. It's like, no, that's just your mind telling you that it's a lot. It's not a lot. It's, if you were here and saw my little daughter during the day, that's a natural state for a 4.5-year-old. She's in that place of high creativity. She take little kids, so she has her superheroes that she, in her mind, she sort of projects the superhero, but she gets it. She's a superhero. I'm the superhero. And it's kind of funny. She'll try to do this one thing where this one superhero does this jump and the legs splay out and the hands touch the toes, and she can't get it that in her body she can't do that at 4.5. So, well, just give yourself some time. Your body will develop it, because in her mind she can do it, but why can't the body do it? So that's the thing too, for people to realize that as we develop, one of the things we do is we develop a lighter and lighter relationship with our body and with our person, because the body and the person still might have their limitations. That's not the point. The point is that this other being that wants to manifest through the body and the person isn't bothered by the limitations of the particular body and the person. And you've seen many great ones with mental and physical limitations shine beautiful lights in this world. And so that's, again, part of it to get it, because the old way is thinking, well, to be this great being, you have to look this way, you have to, feel strong and healthy. And it's like, not really. It's, who's the guy, the physicist in the wheelchair, Hawkins, right? I mean, there's lots of examples of people like that where, the body was totally failed, but the mind was still brilliant. And, but the most important thing, and this is not even limited by the mind, is that you could see this coming through even very damaged people. You see that a lot in this culture down here. The special children are very much part of the culture. They're not kind of hid away so much. So you always see that with Down syndrome children. They're very bright lights. I mean, they're just so happy and so filled with love and all that. So, like, again, just like Eckhart said, learning to die without dying, dropping the body, learning to be beautiful and brilliant without necessarily any special qualities. That's the key. It's not like, we're not high achievers. We actually become the opposite of that. We become just as happy as special children, or as happy as children. And, it's like, anyway, I've said enough. Ready to close things up, Lynn? Yes? Yes, well, thank you all for being part of our ongoing circle. I look forward to every week together. It's great.
Yeah, thank you, Louis. It's wonderful to hear these. And even though, I heard these 11 years ago, they're hitting home even more than ever for what you shed on for me to be introduced to, and really practicing these and trying to think of really applicable ways to put this into our life. And so next week, that's what we'll kind of wrap it up together, tie it together, add some more of those concepts. And we'll, some of the actual practices, I'll send out a handout at one point next week, but here's just a little screenshot of some of these principles for conscious living with using that acronym of OASIS, meaning what Louis touched on as oneness, awakening, stillness, inspiring, simplicity. And these are just some ways to get more, to apply actual ways to put it into our life. So anyway, we can go into some of that more next time and give you that as a handout too. So have your equinox time, feel that balance, feel that wholeness. You are whole, happy, and free. And unless anyone has any final comments, we will call it a session.
Thank you,
both.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for
Until
coming.
next week.
And I have
Bye-bye.
it recorded. So
Okay.
thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.